Man, I know. If you know, like when we're gonna do our song in a minute, you can just sneak off. No, it is well worth it today. But it's gonna go a little longer. Today's a unique day for us at Novesta. We're gonna have a chance to hear from our group that went to Puerto Rico a few weeks back, and they're gonna share. And it's just a neat opportunity to be reminded that like church isn't about a preacher. In case you think that, like it definitely is not about a preacher. It's about us loving God and loving people really well. And so today we're gonna get to hear from that group, and I'm excited about that. First, just want to welcome you to Novesta. If you're new or new-ish, obviously today will look a lot different than a normal Sunday will. We don't normally have 21 people up on stage like it's the panel from The Office giving their update on how the series went. But it's a unique chance to just hear from some people who, in faith, decided to head to Puerto Rico for a week. And I think that forever is going to affect and change their life, and so you're going to get to hear from them. Announcements-wise, just a few things. I want to just say thank you. We've had a really busy stretch here at the church over the last couple of weeks, and I know yesterday we did a nights party for our young guys, and just a huge shout-out to our children's ministry. They transferred the gym into this palace and this kingdom, and it was just a really great adventure, and I know that doesn't happen on accident. There's a lot of time and effort and planning that goes into that, and so we appreciate that. Friday night, we were able to pay for high schoolers to go see Jesus Revolution for free, so thank you for your continued generosity. 94 students were able to go that night and see the movie. If you haven't seen the movie, it is powerful, it is good, it is really a great reminder. What I love most about the movie, it's not giving it away, but the movie talks a lot about the search for truth. And what I really love is like the theme of the movie is like, what if Jesus is the truth? Because Jesus is the truth. And, it even talks about drug culture. It talks about, young people in their quest to find truth. And they said they're asking the right questions. They're just going down the wrong places. And Jesus Revolution kind of points young people specifically to be like, hey, find the right path to find the right truth. And if even a couple of those kids on Friday night, maybe that lingers with them, maybe that'll help them head down that way. So just a huge thank you. I know our Shine wraps up this week, and so a big thank you to all of our teachers and volunteers that make Shine possible. Man, they've given up so much time and effort and energy to think that we take 150 kids from the schools. I got to start saying schools because a huge herd from Kingston comes too. But we have 150 kids from schools that show up that are loved and cared for and encouraged and blessed, and we haven't even lost one yet, as far as I know. Like, it's been close a couple times. We haven't even lost one, and so that wraps up this week, and we're just so thankful for that. We're so thankful for that. So really, that's announcements-wise. I just want to say gratitude, appreciation. Even thinking this morning about, it went a little longer, and I'm like, man, and there are teachers with kids right there, like down that hallway, who are loving them really well during that time. So appreciate all those things. Prayer request-wise, just a couple things to mention. Ron Roach is someone who serves at our church really regularly. He's on our safety team, helps out with a lot of different things here at the church. Had surgery this past week. He was diagnosed with prostate cancer a while back. This surgery was supposed to be routine. We sent out an update on Friday that it was more complicated. I talked to Ann this morning. She wanted to kind of clarify. The diagnosis, the prognosis is still the same. Everything is good that way. The doctors feel very confident with that. Obviously, there's sending in things for biopsies, but like that part is good. What she explained was that the surgery, they were removing lymph nodes in order to test them. The lymph nodes were attached to the intestines, and through the process of removing the lymph nodes, there was a tear in the intestine, and so the recovery is much longer and more difficult, but the prognosis is not worse. And so, didn't really have clarity on that. Like, so Ron and Ann, greatly appreciate your prayers. He's doing okay, but it's not a different prognosis. It's just a longer recovery. So keep Ron and Ann in your prayers. Ann did ask me to mention to you all, if she needs help, she will ask for it. And so I know people sometimes are like, what can we do? What can we do? She'll ask if she needs help, and that she doesn't need food. She has a very strict diet because of what she can have, and Ron can't eat because his intestine got tore. So she doesn't need food. She doesn't want to make anybody feel bad, but like she doesn't need food. But if she needs help, she'll ask for it. So keep Ron in your prayers. The other prayer request just came in between services, and Alex Susella, one of the young guys who comes every Sunday, is usually sitting right here in the middle row, Jeremy and Courtney's son. He's just graduated last year, the year before. Do not know much other than he suffered an injury last night, was at the Carroll Hospital, has been transferred to Hurley, and he's been intubated. And so don't know the extent of that, but there's a young guy right now who's in intensive care, obviously if he's intubated. So that just happened within the last 15 minutes that I became aware of it, and so it happened overnight. So if you guys would just remember to pray for Alex, and I'm going to do that here in just a minute as well. So again, Alex, super bright-eyed guy. Love seeing him come in and go out, and he's here like every Sunday, and so just lift up that family in our prayers. So what we're going to do, I'm going to pray that this time would be special. I really believe that God wants to use this morning to encourage us. You'll hear it throughout what they're going to share, and I want to share what they're going to share. But God is interested in using us and in working in us and through us. And so I'm just going to pray that God would show up this morning and remind us of that through the testimony you're going to hear, through the sharing and those different things. And so I want to open with prayer, and then we're going to do a song together just to kind of focus our attention on God, and then we're going to turn it over to the mission team. So will you guys pray with me? Father, this morning, I do thank you for sunshine, even though it's still really cold, for the reminder that spring is on the way, and for the chance to gather as a church family. God, I'm just grateful this morning for so many people who love you so very well and serve in different ways, whether that's here at the church or caring about the community, the group that traveled overseas to accomplish that same work. God, we just pray this morning that you would show up here in a powerful way, that your presence would be felt. I pray if anyone's here this morning and they are down and out or discouraged, if they're facing a difficult situation, if they feel like the world's given up on them, or if they feel like they've made a mess of themselves, I just pray that you would remind them that you are good and you are faithful and that you love them, that you are a gracious and amazing Father who has incredible plans for their life, who doesn't want to condemn them, but instead showed your love for them by allowing Jesus to go to the cross. God, I just pray this morning for this time together that your Spirit would show up in a powerful way, that you would minister to us and encourage us as we meet here today. I do lift up Ron and pray for his continued healing, and I specifically lift up Alex right now this morning. And again, not knowing the details, just knowing that he needs you and needs your presence. Pray be with all the doctors, all the specialists, whoever are working with whatever it is that they need to be working with, that you would show up in a powerful way. Be with Jeremy, Courtney, and the rest of their family as well. And I just pray that your loving arms would surround them right now, and that you would encourage them, that we as a church family would come beside them in whatever that looks like going forward, and that, God, you would just use this for your glory and for your kingdom. God, we just put this time into your hands, and again, we thank you so much for the privilege of worship, and we ask this all in Jesus' name. Amen. I'm going to ask you guys if you would go ahead and stand up, give someone beside you a good morning or hello, and then worship with us for a song today.
Some people think you're distant, just some words on a page. That you're nothing more than fables handed down along the way. But I've seen you part the waters when no one else could pull me from the deep. That's who you are to me.
Some people think you just live in cathedrals made of stone, but I know that you live inside my heart. I know that it's your home. I've seen you in a sunset, and in the eyes of a stranger on the street. That's who you are to me.
You're amazing, faithful, love's open door. When I'm empty, you fill me with hunger for more of your mercy, your goodness. Lord, you're the air that I breathe. That's who you are to me. Who you are to me. Sometimes I have my doubts, I'm sure that everybody does. And I wonder when I stumble, am I still worthy of your love? But I know that I get stronger when I'm talking to you down on my knees. You're everything I need. You're amazing, faithful, love's open door. When I'm empty, you fill me with hunger for more of your mercy, your goodness. Lord, you're the air that I breathe. That's who you are to me. Who you you're forever holy. You're the Lamb who is worthy, my forgiveness, my healer, the Messiah, my Redeemer. You're amazing, faithful, love's open door. When I'm empty, you fill me with hunger for more of your mercy, your goodness. Lord, you're the air that I breathe. That's who you are. You are greater, higher, over it all. You're precious, Jesus. I stand in awe of your mercy, your goodness. Lord, you're the air that I breathe. That's who you are to me. 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 That's who you are to me.
So this is like what we used to, this is what we did in Puerto Rico. Like, all right, come on, friends. Everybody have a seat. I did count a lot. I was like the little teacher that walked around. How many are there? Okay, start counting. We are missing two. We have Darren and Sawyer Ross that were also part of our crew that couldn't be here today. So Connie's she's gonna step it up for them too, I guess, right? So thank you all for coming. I had the privilege of working with all of these awesome humans as we served in Puerto Rico. So real quick, we're just going to go around and we're just going to tell you who we are. And if this is our first or our last, it definitely won't be our last, mission trip. So if you don't know me, I'm Heather Roberts. This was my first international, sorry Scott, I stole it. That's a privilege of doing this twice. Mission trip.
I'm Garrett Roberts, and this was my first international one, and hopefully I want to go on many more.
Karen Spears, and it was not my first, but I was very blessed to be able to go with these people.
Tammy Gremmel, this was my first, and I would enjoy going again.
Janice Brandel, and this is my first mission trip.
This was my first mission trip, and my name's Emily Greibel.
I'm Joel Brandel, and it was my first mission trip as well.
Matt Embody, and this was my first mission trip as
well. Tracy Embody, this was my first mission trip, and I just wanted to say I was so happy that teenagers went. That made my heart really happy that young people went to do this also.
Connie Ross, this was my first mission trip as well as my family's.
Trent Roberts, this was mine too, my first.
I'm Ethan Hennessy, and this is my first.
Good morning, I'm Ray Peasley. Puerto Rico is not my first mission trip, but I'm definitely looking forward to going to more mission trips.
Scott Peasley, and this was my first international mission trip.
I'll take this one. I'm Don Meekumber. I've been on several mission trips, never one with this large of a group. It was pretty great.
I'm Rhonda Benjamin, and this is my second mission trip.
Good morning, I'm Dan McConaughey, and this was my first trip, and hopefully I'll have many more.
Robin Beckrow, first mission trip.
I'm Sarah Meekumber, and this was my first mission trip.
I'm Tristan Thompson, and this is my first mission trip.
I'm Anna Meekumber, and this was my first mission trip.
we just want to try to give you a snapshot this morning of what the trip was. There's so many different aspects to it, and truthfully, we're going to talk a little bit about it, and I say a little bit. We're going to do our best to give you an idea of what that is. There's so many different things. All I'm going to attempt to do is jog their memory a little bit by putting up some different topics, some different things, and let them go. So anyone who wants to, it does not have to be verbatim to first service. If you thought of something you wish you would have said, say it. If you talk again. No better place to start the trip than just simply with, maybe this will work, with the travel. There's a lot involved from the flights down to the driving there, flights home, and so anyone who wants to share about what that process was of getting everywhere we had to be.
Good morning again. Just before when we started a very early morning. We at the church here at 1 o'clock in the morning, had to drive down to Detroit, which was very uneventful, so it worked out really well, other than it was cold, because we were in Michigan. When we got to the airport in Puerto Rico, we did have trouble, as in traveling with a group. We had 4 vehicles rented a long time before, and we got there, and of course they didn't have our vehicles. And so there was confusion, different things, but everybody handled it really well. So we went from 4 vehicles down to 3 vehicles, which kind of, threw Heather and them off because they had to rearrange everybody's seating, but they just did a great job at managing everything. So it worked out great. Driving in Puerto Rico is a little different than here. The guys that did it did an awesome job. Just so you know, like stoplights, they really don't matter, and stop signs, they're not in English, so you don't really have to stop. You kind of learn that after the first day driving, but I was lucky enough not to have to drive in Puerto Rico, which was very good. A lot of cutting off and different things, and it was very interesting. But in the airport, going to the airport as a group, I don't know if any of you have ever done it, but it's kind of a neat experience to have a big group. People are always like, oh, there's a group, where are you going, what are you doing? And so you get to share with different people that you're by and things, and so it makes it kind of it's really a neat thing that you do get to share with people in what you're doing. I just made really good friends. So, I don't know who wants this.
I just thought it was really cool. So our plane ride back from Puerto Rico, like the first one, so we had a layover, but Heather was going to sit by me, and I told her not to because I wanted to meet new people. And I met these 2 girls. Yeah, I was like kicking her out. And I met these 2 girls. They were like my age, and they were also coming from a mission trip in Puerto Rico. They were like from a Catholic school in Tennessee. And it was just really cool to hear about like the work they did with like an orphanage there and stuff. So it was just cool to learn about like the other things God was doing in other places. So
I mentioned it in the first service too. The thing that kind of really got to me was when we were coming home and we were checking in at the airport there. The flight attendants, when you're checking your bag and stuff like that, they were asking, questions on, what were we doing there, and where we been and all that. And we told them we were on a mission trip and we did the stuff, and the sincerity in. Let's see, the sincerity in the Puerto Ricans was different than the sincerity in the ones in Detroit, but how appreciative they were that we were there. I mean, it was just amazing. I mean, I've been around quite a bit in my lifetime, and I don't think I've ever seen that kind of connection to somebody just checking my bag. And but they really, truly appreciated us being down there, and that was really cool. It made it definitely that much more worthwhile.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting. You can see here we're in the 15-passenger van, which Karen is far too generous. We reserved the vans, and I will just say, and for all of you, Heather did an awesome job planning this trip. I mean, the amount of time that she spent leading up to planning every detail, making sure it was right, like, just thank you. And we didn't necessarily say it, but thank you for everything. Heather was nice enough to give me one job, and she said, Don, you can reserve the vans. I'm like, I got this. When it did not go as planned, everyone handled it well except for me. And Heather was really great at going, Don, it's fine, we'll work it out. And totally taken care of. 15-passenger van. They're all smiling because this was the first day on the way to the job site that I took this picture. They had no idea what was about to happen. But we survived. It was that day we ended up taking a drive up a road that should not have been driven on, that I truly was not sure what was going to happen. And I was in control of the van. So it was exciting, it was fun, and the whole time we were able to get where we needed to go. One of those places was the stadium where we stayed. I didn't know what to expect leading into this, staying in a baseball stadium. Never slept in a baseball stadium. Never gone to a baseball stadium. It's not my favorite activity. But does anyone want to talk about the accommodations that we had for the week?
Like Don said, we stayed at the stadium here, which actually looked glorious compared to what I was expecting that we were going to get, and I think we all kind of felt the same way, that I was thinking we were going to be in ramshackle, tin roof, leaky places and didn't know what we were going to be sleeping on, and so this was kind of like the Ritz. We were, I think, pleasantly surprised and grateful for that. We were actually up on the top floor, the 3rd floor, which had a great view. Down at the bottom, the smaller pictures, that's the room. It was kind of like a banquet area. Girls on one side, boys on the other. The boys may have had to stay down in the guest locker room, but us girls didn't make them do that, which I'm glad we all stayed together because it was a great bonding experience. And as Joel will talk about our sleeping situation, in his communion devotion, the air mattresses were interesting, along with the showers. It was in the locker rooms where there's no partitions. So it was one at a time, even though there was 10 or 12 shower heads. One person was taking a shower in a huge room all by themselves, while other people would stand guard with the door locked, because there's people coming in off the street at all times, and you're down on the bottom floor for showers in the locker room, so you had to have people standing guard. And interesting, it was quite an experience, but I think we all really enjoyed everything that we were blessed with to be given for this mission trip.
So yeah, the stadium was really cool, especially for us kids. Like, none of us really had our phones, and if we did, they did not work. Like, we were in the middle of like nowhere, so like our phones didn't work, so we were all like bored to death the first couple of days. But like we had a lot of fun. We played a lot of euchre and card games there. We had where we ate, the tables. Oh, they were so bad. So like every time you would move the chair, it would squeak so bad. Like everyone's ears hurt. We'd be in the middle of a game and someone would do that, and we'd all just start yelling at each other. Like, get it together, guys. If you've been here for a couple days, like, you should figure it out by now. Like, we don't do this anymore. But like, we played hide and seek in the stadium. I think that was a blast. Like, we were all like hiding in like these dirty chairs. Like, these are like terrible. There was like spiders and lizards everywhere. And like there was like a ladder, and we thought someone climbed on top of the stadium was hiding in there, because who was it? We couldn't find someone. It might have been Scott. And we thought he climbed on top. We're like, we're not going up there. We don't know what's up there. Like, if you're up there, we're just done. But like it was a blast. We had fun, I think. But yeah.
Yeah, and even with the spiders and the lizards, whatever I was picturing in my head, it far exceeded those, and it was great. It was great for the trip. One of the first places we got to go the first morning we got there was to church. It was a Sunday morning, after we got settled in, and so we got to go to church. It was pretty uneventful, not much to say, pretty much exactly like it is here. We can move on? No. It was church. It was awesome. It was an incredible experience. It was completely different than anything I had ever been a part of. Is there anyone that wants to share about that church that day?
I will. I just didn't want to steal somebody else's. So we went to church service. It was 2 hours long. It was totally awesome, though. Like, it didn't feel like 2 hours. Like, when Brad goes over, we're all like, come on, Brad, we have to go get the kids. But this was so exciting. Like, the dancers and the singers, like, we just wanted to bring them back with us because it was so entertaining. Like, they had ribbons, and it was a show. So, and the preachers, so it was a father and a son. And the father would speak English, and the son would speak Spanish. so that we, English, could understand what they were saying, because otherwise we would have had no clue. Because some of us could kind of speak Spanish, which was a little bit of a problem at times. But then they called me up on stage. I don't speak in front of people, especially people that they can't understand me. So it was kind of a little nerve-wracking, but it was good. It was fun. I wish Sawyer was here because he got to get picked on during the service, and I actually shared the service on my Facebook page. It's pretty unique and pretty awesome. If anybody wanted to look at that, it's a neat video. So, anybody else?
When we walked in for the church, not knowing what to expect, these people were the most gracious and welcoming people that you could ever imagine. There was not one time, not even, I'm not just talking at church, but the whole trip, that we did not feel welcome and loved while we were there. But I remember walking into this church, and they had some song playing, and it was the most upbeat and moving song that I was just kind of like bebopping to, and it was getting me pumped. And I'm not really that demonstrative person that's going to be up there and, you know, doing the interpretive dancing like there was going on at this service, which was awesome, but it just moved me. I can't put into words better than that, but it made my heart swell. It was amazing.
It's always interesting to me to see how people worship, and that's what I think we experienced that day, was complete worship. Whether it was the dance team with the ribbons and the sticks, whether it was the person in the aisle who just couldn't possibly hold it in anymore. The sheer volume, it was a little overwhelming. I mean, it was everything that they had to give to Jesus, they gave that morning. They showed up there to worship for as long as it took, and every single person there really was just immersed in that. And so it really was a unique experience and really, really awesome for us. After church, you know, what do? We go eat food. Guys, the food in Puerto Rico, let me tell you what. I don't know whether I just had worked myself up to no expectations of this trip, and I was going to starve and sleep outside and barely survive. Food made it through, and Maria, we'll let these guys tell you about Maria and who she was and how she impacted our week.
So the first night we were there, Maria made us this soup, and it was really interesting. It had like corn on the cob in it, and like fourths of like a piece, like a chunk of corn on the cob, and I didn't really know how to eat that. And then there was a lot of broccoli in it, and Janice, so she's like my school guidance counselor, so that's like how I like view her as. And Karen just heard this story this morning. So anyways, Janice was putting her broccoli in Karen's soup because she didn't want her broccoli, and Karen like wanted it. And Karen gets up to get some bread, I think, and Janice finds this like big like spiny like chicken bone in her soup, and she like looks at it and she puts it in Karen's soup. And then Karen comes back and is eating her soup, and all of a sudden she finds this chicken bone, and I just start laughing like hysterically because it was so funny. And Karen just thought I thought it was funny because there was a chicken bone, and she didn't know that Janice put it in there until this morning. So I thought that was pretty funny. And then we went to Irma's house, a lady's house who we were like painting and doing landscaping at. And she made us lunch. She made us chicken and rice and beans and plantains. And there was this dish, and I didn't really know what it was, but she picked us green bananas from her backyard. Like, they were like bright green, and that was interesting. I never really thought I'd eat a green banana before. But she was just so thankful for us to be there that she just wanted to give us everything she could because we were helping her out. So, yeah.
Technical difficulty, thank you. So we mentioned Maria. Maria is very culinary talented, and she fed us well, delicious, kind, beautiful soul. She shared a lot of her lifetime experiences with us our last evening together. And one of the things that she said, I know, resonated with Tracy and I feel like it may have other people. And it's one of the things from the trip that I just keep thinking of time and time again because it is so true. She said, I'll back up. She's native to Puerto Rico, but she has lived in the States and back to Puerto Rico. And she said that in America, you need all the things, but in Puerto Rico, you don't. And I thought, isn't that true of Americans, that we tend to think that all the things are necessities, when in actuality they are not. They're just things.
Yeah, we were very blessed to have Maria. We found out when we got there that our cook for the week had canceled, and so we weren't going to have anyone. And so Saturday night, Maria had agreed to cook us a meal to get us started, and I think she showed up for all but one. And I will say I was very glad, because the one that she did not was the one time I got sick, and so to see her show up the next day was great. And she just continued to serve, and she spent hours each day preparing these meals and cooking for us, and unique, awesome things, and just because she has a servant's heart. And so I think we are all better for knowing Maria and for getting that experience from her. Also, eating much better food than we would have ever had without her. Sorry, Joel, you didn't get to lose the weight. At this time, we want to change gears a little bit and have the opportunity. We're gathered here together this morning. It's a different service, but we still have the opportunity to be here and to hear what Jesus is doing, and so we want to spend time and partake in communion with you. So Joel's going to share a communion devo, and I just wanted to make the announcement Brad does sometimes of, if you are new or newish here, if you're here, we want to invite you to partake in communion with us. It is open communion. If you love Jesus, if he's your Savior, we want you to feel free to do that. We have tables in all the corners with bread and juice, and so as Joel gives his devo and as we pray and we open that up, please feel free, not pressured, but free to take communion with us this morning. Yes, and in the back corner we have gluten-free. It is back there, right? Yes. The back corner we have gluten-free as well, if that's something that you need. Thank you.
Well, obviously I was fortunate enough to be able to go on this trip to Puerto Rico, and I hope if any of you ever get the opportunity to do something like this, you take advantage of it, because it was truly a great experience. And I want to thank everybody that's up here. The 23 of us really did a lot of good things down there, and it was awesome getting to know all of these people and to work with them and just to serve. But on this trip, I learned some things about myself and just about the world. So I've got a few fun facts that I want to share with you. First fun fact, did you know that in Puerto Rico that they measure distances on their highways in kilometers, but their speed limits are in miles per hour? Didn't make a whole lot of sense, but true. The first night as we were driving from San Juan to Calle, we really didn't know what those signs, when they said 60 what? We learned that night that distances are in kilometers and speed in miles per hour. Fun fact number 2, if you had Spanish in high school 30 years ago, you shouldn't go down to Puerto Rico and speak it a little bit and then speak the language and not know how to speak the language. When we first met Irma, she was one of the ladies that we worked at her house. And we went around, the group went around and introduced themselves to her. And I said, "Mi llamo Joel," which I think from my Spanish classes means my name is Joel. Pretty sure that's what it meant, at least. She immediately thought I spoke Spanish. So she started just rattling stuff off, 100 miles an hour. After about 2 minutes, I'm like, "No comprendo," because those were the other 2 words that I remember from Spanish class. So if you can't speak the language, don't speak the language. Fun fact number 3, and this goes for all of us that were there. At least I found the air mattresses were actually fairly comfortable. Again, we stayed in a baseball stadium. We were up in that conference room. The 23 of us were on air mattresses. They were comfortable, but they made a lot of noise. And I think we concluded, Garrett and I, that my air mattress was the noisiest one of all. Every time I breathed, it seemed to make a squeak. And if I shifted my weight at all, it sounded like I was jumping on bagpipes. And truly, it was just the air mattress. It had nothing to do with the beans and rice that we ate the entire time we were down there. But very, very noisy at night. Fun fact number 4, and a couple people have said something to me about this after the first service. Waking up at a baseball stadium and going out in this tropical setting with a cup of coffee and sitting in the stands and watching the sun come up as the fog and mist is kind of dissipating over the palm trees and that was pretty cool. I could get used to that real quick. It was just very picturesque, very peaceful, and it was an awesome way to start the day. Now, a few not so fun facts that I learned about myself and about this mission trip, I guess. Losing your shoe in the mud from the water runoff of a hoarder's house, where the water is coming out of the sink and out of the bathroom, I'm pretty sure, and then having to find your shoe a foot deep in the muck and then put it back on, not something I ever want to do ever again. Those shoes stayed in Puerto Rico. Not so fun fact number 2. We did a lot of work there, cleaned up a lot of junk, didn't we? I think we probably filled 7 or 8 dump trucks, dumpsters with just stuff. And the thing is we had to play dumpster Jenga to get everything in there as best as we could. And I learned that dumpster Jenga is not nearly as fun as it sounds, and I'm pretty certain that it's never going to become the next tabletop family game night craze. Dumpster Jenga, not so much fun. Other not so fun fact is the day that we were leaving, we were in the airport in San Juan. Matt had a good experience in the airport with the attendant that was just very grateful for us being there. But Emily Greibel, who again was a student at Ubley when I was principal there, who in the course of the week, she made me realize what a bad guy I was. Because she told this nice story of how meaningful it was when I gave her the principal's award when she was in 6th grade. And I nodded and like, don't have a clue, don't remember that at all. So I felt kind of guilty about having failed her or having failed to realize the importance of that occasion. So in the airport, she asked us all to distribute a Bible to someone on her trip home. Again, she brought the Bibles from the church. I'm assuming she had permission to take the Bibles. But giving away anything at an airport is really difficult because nobody makes eye contact at an airport. It's kind of like going into a public restroom. You just don't look. And I finally make eye contact with this one guy. So I walked over to him. He was fairly close to me. And I said, we're on a mission trip. I have a Bible that I'd like to give you. And he laughed at me. And he said, the last thing I need is another Bible. My wife is a pastor. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Can you just take this Bible so I can say I gave this away? But instead, he gave me a bottle of water because he didn't want the bottle of water, which is the exact wrong thing that a middle-aged guy needs before he goes on a plane trip. So I should have given him the Bible, not taken the water. But shortly thereafter, I did give the Bible away. There was a couple that was sitting at a bench. I quickly went up to them, explained that we were on a mission trip. Here's a Bible, please take it. They looked at me like I had 3 heads growing out of between my shoulders, but I scurried off quick enough that Bible was theirs. And I hope by the grace of God that it is helping them now. I'll never know, I guess. The last thing that I learned about, I guess, us and about myself is we really did do a lot of good work there. I learned that when I am in the mindset that I'm supposed to serve others, I'm really good at it. I worked really hard down there. I was very conscientious. I was very patient, generous, selfless, non-judgmental. Shortly after getting back up here to Michigan, I got out of that mindset of that, hey, I'm here to serve. I'm here to emulate Jesus in the world that I'm living in. Shortly after we got back here, we got a snowstorm. Another fun fact, they don't have snow in Puerto Rico. It was pretty nice. But we got a snowstorm here. I went out with my snowplow and I plowed out our driveway. I plowed out my mother-in-law's. I plowed out my son's driveway. And I drove right past my mother-in-law's neighbor. They weren't out. They weren't doing anything with the snow. If they would have been out, I probably would have stopped and asked them if they wanted me to help them out. But instead of taking the initiative and going up to them and asking them, I just drove by and didn't even think about it for a couple of hours. Their house is one that they don't take care of their house as well as I think they should. They leave stuff laying around, kind of judgmental. And it was kind of striking to me as my wife pointed out my flaws in this situation that, yeah, I had the right mindset in Puerto Rico, but sometimes here in our world, the real world, I'm not so good at being a good servant of Jesus. And that's, as we prepare for communion, that's, I guess, what I want to leave you with. Jesus gave his very all, his everything in serving us and giving us the chance for eternal life. I hope that we take advantage of the opportunities that we have to serve others here in our world. They need it too. So if you please just bow your heads and pray with me as we get ready to take communion. Heavenly Father, I thank you for this opportunity today to be in the church, to reminisce about the things that we did in Puerto Rico and to share that with the folks here. And I just hope that you put it on our hearts to look for those opportunities to serve others, whether it be miles and miles away or whether it just be a few feet away from our doorsteps. I pray that you just compel us to show your love to those that we come in contact with. I pray this in your Son Jesus' name. Amen.
That song is one that we actually were able to worship to in church, and as much as I don't understand Spanish, it was incredible to me how much I didn't have to understand the words to understand the meaning, to understand the lyrics. I'm sure I could get there and get to the great I am, but in that moment you don't need any comprehension of the language to understand the worship. We want to take some time, and I know we don't have enough time to share everything that we want to share, but we want to talk about the work that we were able to do, the different job sites we were able to go to, and to share the opportunity that we had to be a blessing as we were being blessed in Puerto Rico. And so we're going to go through each job site, each opportunity relatively quickly and probably too fast to share everything. But as we do this, we want to give you an idea of who served where and of what was done. And if you have more questions later, there's nothing we would love more than to continue to talk about our experiences. So the places we went to is Jessica's house. If you were at Jessica's house, if you want to stand up and wave and say, I was there. Nobody said I was there. Who would like to share about what was done and the work and the experience?
I'll try to keep it short. It's hard to get all of it out in we were talking about it earlier after the first service. We could probably see it for 2-3 hours talking about everything we covered over there. But at Jessica's house, Drill Sergeant Heather tasked me with being in charge of Jessica's, because I told my wife when we first came on this trip, I was like, I had a career in the military, I work in law enforcement. I said, I just want to be a worker bee. I don't want to be in charge of nothing, and I just want to go down there and try to help people and do a good thing, but I don't want to be in charge of nothing. Walk in the door, Heather goes, you're in charge of Jessica's house. So, but I'll tell you what, myself, Dan, Robin, Scott, and Darren. Darren's not here today. Man, we worked great as a team. We kind of split up into, it was a little overwhelming when we got to Jessica's because there was so much repairs to do. The roof was pretty much toast, the walls, floor rotted, all kinds of stuff. And I'll tell you, as a team, we kind of split off. Dan, Robin, and Scott kind of did one area, and me and Darren got to scoot around and dog poo and stuff underneath, but we got the floor joists and stuff all back in shape, and we're able to get it done in such a timely manner that we were able to get it painted too, because James, the mission leader, was pretty impressed on how much we got done. But we did a really good job on kind of breaking up what we could do and what we couldn't do, and we really made a lot of ground on it. I don't know, Dan, do you want to say anything? No, I'm just kidding. I was going to put him on the spot, so he didn't want to talk. So, but no, Dan is amazing because he knows a lot about construction. I joke about people. I'm a farm boy. I definitely know how to rig stuff, and I know enough about construction to be dangerous. So, but we made it work real well. We definitely worked together as a team. And then when the big group came up and helped the landscaping and cleaning back the jungle, I mean, it was like a really transformation. Jessica wanted a purple house, and she got a purple house when she was all done. So that's about it, unless you guys want to say.
One thing I forgot to say in the first service, Scott was our only youth on our team, and he's quiet, but man, is he a hard worker. So good job, Gerald and Jamie. You raised him good, because he was not sitting down. He was always trying to find something to do. So I was very impressed with him.
I was only up at Jessica's house for a short part of an afternoon, and it truly was up the mountain. That's how they kept describing it. And it was the most treacherous drive ever going up, I think. And I got to see it after they had worked on it for 2 days already. And it truly was just a shack that had $1 million view. I mean, it truly was up at the top of the mountain. These guys did an awesome job making it much more livable for that family.
And I also have to say thank you to Dan. He was a driver. If you don't know Dan, here's some stories. He was a race car driver with side-by-sides, and I'm sure he got tired of hearing me go, every time when somebody was in our lane or he was in somebody else's lane on these winding mountain roads, but he kept us alive, and he was good. Thank you, Dan.
If you ever go into Puerto Rico, bring a professional driver. Anyone want to share a little bit more?
When we got to Irma's house, we met her, and we all introduced ourselves, and it was really cool. And me and Trent got our saws out, and we cut banana trees down. And we were just cutting them up, and surprised we didn't get hurt. But Irma, she fed us, and she gave us juice. And I had a lot of rice. She made good rice. But me and Trent got to talk to her, and we didn't know much Spanish, and she didn't know much English, but we communicated, kind of, but yeah, it was a good experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll talk about Irma a little bit, and there's some pictures of just Ethan and Trenton, and it's hard to explain because they're just talking to her and how kind they were to her and how the relationship that was built between them two, even though they didn't really, speak much English or Spanish or anything like that, but it was really cool to see that relationship that was built, because God can work through languages, and I seen that with my own eyes, and it was pretty amazing. But yeah, that place was literally a jungle up there, top left. Me and Joel and Bianca, that's her name now. We've changed her name. Tammy. It's Tammy, but it's Bianca. And Rhonda back there, they kind of were in charge with the kids, and I don't know if they watched them. They mainly just kept them going, whipping them and stuff. But but yeah, it was a lot of work. We had some weed whips that they called weed whips. They weren't really weed whips because they were missing most of the parts. So you literally had to tie the string inside it each time, and it would last about 30 seconds. I don't know how we didn't throw them over the fence, but me and Joel didn't. The end result was amazing, and at one point, me and Joel were weed whipping back there, and we're just weed whipping away, and then the kids start running from behind the building like a bear or something chasing them. Like, what is going on? Like, guys, settle down. And he said there's a iguana back there. And like, oh yeah, it can't be that big. Come on. So I run around there, and yeah, it's straight up full size iguana, and yeah, I wasn't going back there either. So that kind of got left a little bit. It wasn't as important, but it was really cool to see. There's some pictures even of Joel sitting and talking to Irma, and he kind of talked, I guess, to her, but no, that language barrier was a thing. But it was amazing to see the connection that was built and the relationship that was built between them, and it was cool. I just really enjoyed that, and it just really opened my eyes to the things of blessing people. That's what we do. That's what we're here to do. So it's cool. Thanks.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to be able to go to, I think, all of the project places that we worked at, and Irma's was the first one. And hers was probably the most normal house, I guess you would say. She was a widow whose husband had passed away, and that's why the yard hadn't been taken care of in quite a while. But even in this normal house, there was still some idiosyncrasies that would not fly here in the United States, it doesn't seem like. She had an extension cord running right down the hallway so that her refrigerator would work, and there was just a light bulb in the bathroom that you'd normally have out in your garage or something like that. I mean, and again, her house was very well kept, but it was different. Everything in Puerto Rico was different, and it was just a great experience helping them out.
I wasn't at Irma's house, but after you said something about the iguana, our mission leader, James, he had said right away that in Puerto Rico there are no snakes. So that was great news for me, especially when we were in this jungle area. So even though my phone was working, I was not going to look up and see if he was being honest or not. I was just going that there were no snakes, because there's no way I would be going into the grass in the jungle if I knew that there was. So that could have been another fun fact for you, Joel. There's no snakes in Puerto Rico, according to our mission leader. I just looked up this week. There are snakes in Puerto Rico. Something about a blind snake, so at least we would have been at an advantage, hopefully, then with them.
Matt alluded a little bit to the fact of James was pretty impressed with the work we got done because we were able to complete at each job site much faster. I mean, these guys are workers. They show up, you tell them to do something, and they're just going to go 4 steps beyond. We had the opportunity to serve the mission group that we went with to serve James. He has a school that he'd acquired that they're turning into kind of their mission headquarters and a storage unit where they kept all their stuff that we had the opportunity to serve for a day and to do some work there. Here you go.
Yep. Yeah, we, like Don said, James acquired a storage unit, and so that's basically where all the supplies that we were using at the work sites, that's where they were stored and stuff. And I guess over the mission trips that James was leading, groups would just come back and just pile up the stuff in that storage unit. So it was pretty cluttered. It wasn't very organized and stuff, and so we kind of got, that was the last day of work. It was Matt, Scott, and I, we worked for just a couple hours at that, trying to get organized and stuff. And you can see the picture in the top right there, all the weed whackers and rakes and stuff that we got corralled, and shovels and stuff, and he had painting supplies and stuff like that. So just got that all organized, and you know, we went down there and worked for the Puerto Ricans and stuff, and that was what we were mainly doing. But then it was also cool to spend a couple hours and help out the mission that allowed us to come down there and help out James. So.
It's very neat. It's exciting for me to think about, you know, in future years what that school is going to turn into and what that place is going to be, and the work that's going to continue. Dino and Edith was another house. It was a house we spent all week at, and there was quite a large group. If you were at Dino and Edith, if you want to stand up and say, hey, I was there. Yeah, oh, I was too. There was a lot of us because there was a lot of stuff there. When you talk about the jungle, talk about everything. I don't want to talk about any of it. Could absolutely all day, but I do want to turn it over to Heather with no one's objection to share a little bit about the situation and the experience.
So I had the privilege of putting all these awesome groups together, not knowing half of these people really very well outside of church. And I feel like each and every one of us were put right where God wanted us to be. It was just an awesome experience for each and every one of us, like he said and everybody said. Like, we could sit here and talk for hours. But this is the house I was at for much of the time we were there. Dino and Edith, which Edith I called Mama, I just built this awesome relationship. Usually I'm working beside Karen because I kind of look up to her a little bit. And so I'm always like right next to her, right? Well, for some reason, God had other plans. Like, he wanted me to sit and have a conversation with Mama Edith. Let me back up real quick. This is the hoarder's house, in case you guys don't know. This is where the shoe got lost, and a lot of things got lost and found. They have a patio, fun fact, that I don't know that they knew they even had. But it was a really cool experience for all of us to go to. The Mama Edith, she struggled with alcohol throughout most of her life. And the son, Dino, he was a heroin addict. Even while we were there, he was using. Don actually had to sit with him in the patio area and just kind of keep an eye on him because you could just see the highs and the lows. Day one, we didn't see that much, but by day two, I was like, the students are going to be out here with me, and Don, you're going to sit here. But through all that, the thing that I really want to share is not that we got rid of 5 garbage trucks, dumpsters full of garbage. The thing I want to share is we met in a kitchen at the end. We brought them a few gifts, like their microwave was very old and needed replaced. So that's one thing that we did as a mission group. We raised money. We all kind of pulled money out and bought them a microwave. And anyways, while we were bringing these gifts, I was like, let's pray with this family. Like, I just felt such a connection with them. So their kitchen is the size of like one of our bathrooms here at church. We all, well, not all of us, but a lot of us met in the kitchen, and I'm like, all right. So we kind of just embraced each other, held hands, and we started to pray. And I just said, whoever feels, sorry, I can't talk, feels led to pray, please pray. So I started. Then Karen prayed, then Garrett prayed, and I did as Brad has always taught me, all right, count to 7, Heather, have patience. So I started counting and I got to 5. I'm like, all right, somebody else is gonna pray, right? And Dino, the heroin addict, that I don't like to use that term because he's not. He's a child of God, just like each and every one of us. He started to pray in Spanish, and it was the coolest experience. I had no idea what he was saying, but I felt it. And I think each and every one of us felt it. And as he was praying, I think he was praying for his mom, but I know he was praying for each and every one of us and our students especially, because then he began to pray in English. And when he was praying in English, he prayed over each of our kids that went on this trip. And he just prayed that God would not allow them to go down the path that he had went down. He prayed that each and every one of these students wouldn't be tempted as he was tempted. And at the end, when we were walking out, he took 2 of our students aside and he just looked at them and said to them, it's not going to be your best friend or your enemy that gives you drugs. It's going to be your best friend. So kind of like it applies to each and every one of us, right? Let's just be the hands and feet of Jesus. Sorry. So it was an amazing experience, and I'm very thankful for this amazing group. So thank you.
It was a week at Dino and Anita's house really was a gift and an opportunity. I feel really, really blessed to know them. The last day we kind of finished everything and we're working, and for a couple hours we got to go to Javier's house, and a small group of us got to go there, and it stood out to me at Javier's house because I spent a week with Dino and I got to talk with him, and he and I spent a lot of time sitting together and talking. And I didn't know Javier, and he had some very severe physical limitations, and he couldn't get up and walk, and so we were just going to clean up his yard and move some big logs that he couldn't do himself. A pretty quick job for these guys who get in there with machetes and muscles, all the stuff they have, and move it all out. And I just, in that moment, Javier, he kind of wheeled out and he sat and he pointed to his tree, and I didn't know what he was saying, and he just said, 40 years he'd been waiting to eat the fruit off of this tree. It only blooms every 40 years. He had it when he was 8 years old, and in 6 or 7 months he could have it again. It was just the most simple thing that in the moment, cool. Whether it was day after day after day or just a couple of hours, the connection that we were able to make with people, the experiences and the lives that we were able to share in that moment really did stand out. And so Javier's yard is a little bit cleaner, and we definitely, I won't soon forget his name or his life. We worked a lot on the very last day. We had a free day, and we wanted to experience Puerto Rico, so we went to the rainforest, and we played in the river with the rocks, and then we went to the beach, and that was just really awesome and crazy cool, especially because it was February, and you all were here, and we were on the beach. It was great. And then we went to San Juan and had dinner and got to see the historical side of the island, and it was really cool. And if anyone wants to share anything about that, I'm definitely not going to stop you, but I will turn it over to Janice, because those other thoughts I really put there just for you. And anyone else can have any other thoughts, as we kind of wrap up this sharing time and this service here. I know Janice has some. I was so glad to spend every part of this week together. The free day was so cool to have at the end of people who had worked side by side, now seeing them get to play. It was really great. So anyone have anything?
I just wanted to share about the group and what an amazing time I had. Some people I knew fairly well going on this trip. Other people were acquaintances, and some people I didn't know. But I feel like as a group, we developed a relationship and a bond, and I'm grateful for that. So thank you to everyone. I don't know if James, the director, knew what hit him. The jobs he had planned were supposed to take all week, and after a day and a half, I think he was like, what do I do with them now? They're done. So we reworked some things, and we were always scrambling as to where we're going or what we're doing. But what I really want to talk about is the youth, and having these 9 youth down there. I hope it affected them in a positive way, but I did learn a few fun facts about each of them that I've known a lot of them for years. I've taught them in Sunday school. Emily's gone to school since she was little where I work. And few I didn't know at all, but it was interesting to learn and see how some of them have grown and to get to know the other ones. The one thing I learned about Emily is she is spunky. She has a little bit of spunk and sass to her that I don't usually see that side of her. And she has a sense of humor and is quite quick with a comeback. So you better watch what you say around her because you don't know what she'll ever say back to you. Ethan and Trenton, I found out they were not as brave as they thought they were. When an iguana scares them, and they won't go back there, but apparently they get it from Garrett. I don't know, so I didn't know that part. Ethan, I did not know. He seemed very quiet, but when you got him one-on-one, he's actually a very talkative young man. So, and Trenton, I didn't know he was such a clean freak. He must have needed 3 showers a day. He was changing clothes and making sure his hair was all nice. So I don't know who he was trying to impress there, but he made sure he was clean. Scott, he's pretty quiet, but you can see him here. He's still thinking. He's got that look about him that, yeah, there's something going on here, and you never knew what to expect from Scott. I'd watch him play euchre and watch him reel those guys in and go in for that euchre on that other team and do it so quietly, but you knew he had it planned out three hands ahead what he was going to do. Ray and I had a few issues to start with. He thought picking on me a few times was a good idea. So I finally looked at him, and it was all in fun. But I looked at him and I said, I don't get mad, I get even. So when I found out Ray only had 1 pair of shoes there, one of them disappeared. And he looked all over for his shoe, and he went down to the bottom of the baseball stadium. Joel went with him. And Joel even convinced him to look in the vending machine, that it might have ended up in the vending machine. So Scott was looking in the vending machine for a shoe. Or Ray, sorry. So he came up, and when the shoe just kind of quietly reappeared, he looked at me and I said, gotcha. So he does have a sense of humor, and we had fun with that. So I appreciate that, Ray. Anna, who I had in Sunday school, who I kept saying, you've got to be quiet for at least 5 more minutes so I can get through the lesson. She was nowhere to be found sometimes because she was off just reading a book or sitting by herself, so I didn't know she liked solitude so much. Sarah, she always had a smile on her face, and apparently she got a lizard in her ear that I didn't know about. So you can ask her about that one. But she was like a little mother hen. She made sure everybody was doing what they were doing, going where they were supposed to go. Did we have everybody? She was always concerned about others. Sawyer, who is not here. Sawyer is a little competitive. I did not know that. I didn't know Sawyer before. We were at Edith and Dino's house, and there was a stump there, and I stepped on it a few times, and I said, this thing has to go. He said, I've been working on it all day. And I said, well, it's got to go. So I got something, I started chopping away, and after about 10 minutes, he saw I was making some progress. Well, he wasn't about to let this old lady defeat that. So after watching me a little bit, I looked at him, I said, are you ready to try again? Yep. So he got there, in about 10 minutes he had that root gone. So he was not going to let that defeat him or me show him up. He did not like centipedes either. He saw those and he was out of there. Tristan, he has a bad memory. I found that out. I had to grill him all week about what my name was. And I think he finally has it. Right, Tristan?
Janice,
Yes, all right. So, but at the very end, on our last devotional night, we did match students up with an adult just to see how their experience was. And, you know, it was about, 5-10 minutes, let's talk. And I was leading the devotion that night, and I'm like, okay, we can start wrapping up. And 10 minutes later, people are still talking, and I'm like, okay, we might want to start wrapping up. And then they kept talking. So Tristan was with Joel and I, and just some of the things he shared and getting to know him, he really has a tender heart and a heart for people. And I just appreciate that about you, Tristan. And I just pray that they will continue God's leading in their lives and that they continue in their faith. They were an amazing group. I never heard them complain. They were willing to jump in, lend a hand, do whatever was needed. And it wasn't always glamorous job. So thank you, and thank you for letting me get to know you guys.
The last thing that we really want to share with you is just thank you. On behalf of everyone on this stage, to the church that supported us, that through this process and the lead up and through the trip itself, we're so diligent in prayer, in your encouragement, we just want to say thank you. It truly was an amazing week. There are so many things that go into that, and we could continue talking for hours. And I would like to throw out to you the opportunity to do that. If you'd like to know more, if you have questions about things, or even just have a few minutes to have someone share a story with you, I know we'd love the opportunity to do that. In the future as a church, I know we hope that these trips will continue to be a part, and that heart of service is something that we can continue. If you're considering going on one, we want to be open to sharing our experience with you. But to most of all, just be grateful. Thank you for allowing us to represent you. Thank you for allowing us to go and for praying us through so many different aspects of this trip. Here in a minute, we're going to close this service, and Garrett's going to kind of pray for us as we end this time here together, and as we go out to hopefully serve well and to continue to share Jesus this week, here and now. And then after we do that, there's going to be a slideshow that's going to play. I'll encourage you to take a look. It's 8 minutes and 12 seconds, roughly. If you want to know a little bit more about our trip, about any of the things that we've talked about, it will hopefully shed a little bit more light on that, but definitely don't have to. If you have places to be this afternoon, you can head out when that starts. So, Garrett, if you will close it.
I just had to say one more thing about the relationships that were built with each and every one of us was absolutely amazing, and skin deep now. We're a lot deeper than that. We're close, and it definitely did something to us. And I appreciate each and every one of you for just being there and going, being the hands and feet. And that time at I said I wasn't gonna cry, and I don't think I'm gonna, but I might. But at Dino's, and when we prayed, I can't explain it. The feeling, the Holy Spirit was there, and it was just so amazing to feel and to see that Dino just happened to care for our kids in the way he did. I can't explain the feeling that I got, and I don't know. If you've never had a feeling of the Holy Spirit come over, it's amazing. It's unexplainable. It's a real joy, and I just want to thank you guys for praying for us, for allowing us to go, and yes, thank you. So, will you pray with me? Dear God, we just thank you for this day. We thank you for you, Jesus, God, giving us the opportunity to go on this trip. It was absolutely life-changing, and I ask that if it's able that we can all do this. Every single one of us in this room can do it. And it doesn't have to be in Puerto Rico. It can be right here. And I just ask that you just be with us, guide us this week, and help us up here and in the audience there to never forget what we've been through and what we go through. And we need to remember just the changes. And I thank you for the cross, and I thank you for you, Jesus, and everything you did for us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Have a great week, everyone.